Hey, this is Mr. Glenn, known for his little YouTube channel called Driving Math. And so this video is going to be rather lengthy, but it's going to cover everything as it relates to solving linear equations. Okay, so the first thing that I have here is just explaining to you that this here is called, well, I can't write without the top being off, okay? All right, so 3x plus 5, this is called an expression, okay? And in an expression, you're going to be asked to simplify. Simplify. Now, in this particular problem, there's nothing to solve because x is not given. Now, if you have 3x plus 5 equals 17, then this would be considered an equation. And for an equation, they would ask you to solve. Okay? Just looking at my notes down here. I'm gonna have to get some more markers, as I can see. Been writing a lot. So a linear equation in one variable, all right, can be written, for example, k squared minus 13k plus 36 equals 0 is a linear equation in one variable. The reason why it's in one variable is because there's only one letter k. Yes, it's k squared, but that is not why it is a linear equation with one variable. It's because of the letter. There's only one letter in this particular equation. Okay. Another way to write it is w square root of w minus 3 equals 2. All right, so here's some examples. So now we're not going to solve those just yet, but those are examples of linear equation in one variable. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a different lesson. Now, to solve an equation, you have learned how to solve an equation probably ever since you were in first, second grade, I would imagine. So, for example, like 4 plus blank equals 5. And what's there? Hopefully you would say 1. But now we've put x there, and people get all crazy because there's a variable. It's only saying here's a number, but we don't know what the number is. We just represent it with a letter. Why a letter? Because it wouldn't make sense to represent it with a number, because then this would not be a true statement, right? If we use any number other than the correct answer. All right, so in order to solve this, there are some vocabulary words that you need. So to solve this problem, we're going to do something called subtraction property. What we did here is called subtraction property of equality. Okay. Now we subtracted 4 from both sides. Why? Because we're doing the opposite of what's there. We're going to make this to where it's 0. So now we're left with x equals 5 minus 4, which is 1. And we can always check it by saying 4 plus 1 equals 5. 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 equals 5. So therefore, this is correct. We also can, another vocabulary word, x minus 8 equals 3. Instead of subtraction property, we're going to do addition property of equality. Addition property of equality. because minus 8, to get it to be 0, we have to add 8 to it. And whatever we do to one side, we're going to do to the other. So this is x equals 11. That word is addition property of equality. So we have subtraction property of equality, and we have addition property of equality. Okay, so you can pause it and if you would like, and write that down. But before you do so, you always want to check your work. Like we check our check, we check everything except our work, you know, when it comes to math problems or even other problems that we have. So 11 minus 8 equals 3. You want to solve 11 minus 8, 3. They both equal 3, so that answer is correct. Okay. All right, so I'm going on to the next problem. Same type of processes or work is just written a little differently. We have something like -5 equals m, whatever m is, we don't know. But because it's an equation, we can solve for it. All right, so what we're going to do is try to isolate the variable. Isolate, I think that's how you spell it. Isolate the variable. All right, we're going to get m by itself. Now, it would make sense to bring m over here because it would not be by itself, right? Okay, so we're going to subtract, meaning we're going to use subtraction property of equality to cancel out the 4's. That leaves us with -5 minus 4, which is -9, is what the letter M represents. How do we check it? We plug the information back in. To the original problem is -5 equals -9 plus 4. Well, if we added 4 to -9, we start at -9 and then we move 4 places to the right, we would end up with -5. So therefore, this answer is correct. And as always, make sure that if you have any questions, please let me know. You can do that by emailing me or even by putting the information or questions in the comment section. And please do share this or like this and subscribe so you can make sure that you get all the information when it first comes out, or if I put up any more videos, which I'm sure I will. Okay, so now we're going to something called multiplication property and division property of equality. The goal is still to isolate the variable. Okay, let's see, 3k equals negative 9.6. We are going to use division property of equality. So I'm just going to shorten it by saying division property, okay, of equality. So I might need to write it. Okay, so we're going to find out what k is by doing the opposite of what's going on, right? Right now what's going on is that this is a term, and in that term, here's your coefficient being multiplied by a variable. So it's saying 3 times something equals negative 9.6. So we're going to do the opposite, which is division, to find out what k is. So if we don't know that, you put that in your calculator, but let's see, top in, bottom out, 3 goes into negative 9, negative 3 times, negative 9, you're left with 6, and 3 goes into 6 2 times. So my answer would be k equals negative 3.2. And we can simply check that by negative 3.2 times 3, that's 6, that's 9, that's a negative. Negative times a positive is a negative. All right. All right, so we can also talk about this as multiplication property of equality. So let's say negative m equals 19. So negative times what will give me 19? Well, we're going to use division property of equality, also known as multiplication property of equality, because what we're doing is we're saying we're multiplying. There's negative 1 times something equals 19. Okay, so we want to get this m by itself. So we're going to do the reciprocal of this, so we can multiply by negative 1 or divide by 1 over negative 1. So you end up with m equals 19 divided by negative 1, which is negative 19. We replace the m with negative 19. Negative 19, or negative times a negative, equals a positive. Positive 19, positive 19. This answer is correct. All right. I know that I'm going a little fast. It's only because I know that you can pause the video at any time. But if I am going too fast, just kind of talk about that in the comment section. Man, you know, I really enjoy teaching math. I think because I learned it, and I learned it by teaching myself, but it came with a lot of practice. Okay, just to even learn what I'm teaching you today took a lot of practice. All right, so there are a couple different ways to solve this. Some people may do cross multiplication, but what we would need to do first, right? The first thing that we would need to do, I'm going to show you how to do multiplication property of equality. So I need to get this x by itself is being divided by 4, so I can multiply it by 4. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do that to the other side. That looks like a decimal, isn't it? Okay. So this reduces to be 1, right? And I'm left with x equals 20, and I check it by saying, well, I'm going to say 20, or replace x with 20. 20 divided by 4 equals 5. 5 equals 5. So that is correct. So what I used was multiplication property. I get tongue-tied sometimes. Multiplication property of, well, you may hear my list. I found out I had a list like in college. My marketing teacher told me that. I was devastated. And I had already graduated from college. That was when I went back to school to get a second degree in marketing, which is not math, by the way. And she said, I asked her, I said, is there anything I can work on in my schooling or in the class to get better? She said, you know, I think you're doing fine. It's just this list that you have. She had to emphasize that I had a list by saying it with a list. That was crazy. But nevertheless, we're moving on. I'm just trying to talk us through this problem, or talk as I write this problem. Notice that it says solve, so that means that it is an equation. So in this equation, we have a fraction times something equals 12. So because it is multiplying, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Multiplying by the reciprocal means that we're going to end up getting 1, okay, on that side. We want to know how much is the y worth. So whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. All right, so we end up with reducing that out. I'm left with y equals 12 over 1 times 8 over 3. we're multiplying by a fraction. If you have a calculator, you can just type that in. If you don't, you got to remember that we reduce by the greatest common factor. In this case, we're dividing both sides by 3. And 3 divided by 3 is 1. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So we end up with y equals 4 times 8, which is 32. And we'll check it by saying 3/8 times 32, or 32 over 1. Reduce both these by 8. This is 1, this is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. And 1 times 1 is 1. So you have 12. So therefore, 32 is my answer. Okay? Hopefully you're understanding this information. Okay? Then we move on to a little more extensive of a problem. And so it's going to combine these things together of multiplication property of equality, addition property of equality, and I'll kind of just walk you through that. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is, the goal is we're saying, okay, look at the problem. It says that there's 3 times something plus 7 equals 31. Well, if I cover this and I say blank plus 7 equals 31, then I know that I would subtract 7 from 31, and that gives me 24. Now I'm left with 3 times something is going to give me 24. So right here I did subtraction property of equality. Here I'm going to do division property of equality by dividing both sides by 3. That gives me P equals 8. And so I go back and I check. 3 times 8 plus 7 equals 31. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 plus 7 is 31. 31 equals 31. P equals 8 is my answer. All right. And so if you understand this section of the math, the other parts become a little more understandable. But you have to understand all the things that we learned previously to this particular lesson. All right. Example number 2. All right. So once again, I'm looking at blank minus 1 equals 13. I'm going to have to add 1. That's addition property of equality. That cancels out to be 0. And I have 13 plus 1, which is 14. I bring down negative 6 over 5c. And this problem now looks like how I started one of the previous problems, right? So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 5 over negative 6. Okay? And the same thing over here, negative 5 over 6. These reduce out to become a positive 1. C is left. Then I have 14 over 1 times negative 5 over 6. I reduce diagonally by the greatest common factor. Both would be 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 16 divided by 2 is 3. I'm going to multiply across. 7 times negative 5. I'm going to write that over here. Negative 35. 1 times 3 is 3. You can leave it like that, or you can put it into simplest form, which would be 3 into negative 35. That's a negative 1. That becomes 0. I'm left with 5. 3 goes into 5. 1 time. Subtract that. It gives me 2. So a negative 11 and 2/3. One of those would be your answer. Okay. You say, well, how do I check that? Well, process is still the same, because I do want you to know how to check these these pretty long problems. Okay, 35, 3 equals 13. All right, so we're reducing, right? This is negative. We divide by 3. That's a 1. This is going to be, oh, I got to do minus 1. Missed that part. Minus 1 equals 13. So this becomes negative 2. Reduce this by 5. This is 1. This is negative 7. Negative 7 times, I'm sorry, negative 2 times negative 7. That gives me 14 minus 1. 14 minus 1 is 13. And that's your answer. Okay? Your solution set, as some people would say. Now we extend the problem. And I remember that this is the lesson where, because it's a long lesson, people kind of get tired out of it and they lose focus. And I understand. So if I were you, I would take a small break and then maybe come back to this problem. Or pause it and go back to the previous problems where you didn't understand and resolve those problems or rewrite them a couple times. So here we go. So first thing that we're going to do, okay, look at the problem. It looks kind of confusing. What do I see? Do I see anything that is alike? Okay. So we're going to combine like terms. So I have 4x minus 6x. 4x minus 6x. That is going to be negative 2x. 9 plus 2. That's plus 11 equals 17. Then after we combine like terms, we're going to do subtraction property of equality. That leaves me with negative 2x equals 6. I'm going to then I'm going to use division property of equality. I'm dividing by the negative 2, not just 2, because I have to make sure that it's a 1x. So this is x, that's 1x, and then that's negative 3. Okay, and I solve it. 4 times negative 3 plus 9 minus 6 times negative 3 plus 2 equals 17. This is negative 12. This is plus 9, negative 6. Because it's multiplication, remember, order of operations. That's plus 18. That's minus, that's plus 2. Okay, we got 20, 29. So you got 29 minus 12, which is 17. So this is correct. All right. All right. I was going to put all of these on separate videos, but it seems to kind of flow together, hopefully. Here we go. My boy's kind of creaking. I apologize for that. All right. So from here, yes, we have parentheses, and we need to solve it, but we can't solve inside the parentheses because we don't know. Well, they're not like terms. So we look outside of them, and what we have to do is distribute. So we're going to distribute the 2 to the 1 and 2 to the negative 3h, which is negative 6h. Okay. Well, we can take the parentheses out because we just solved that. And then distribute to -5, that's negative 10h, -5 to 3, -15 equals -21. Then we're going to combine like terms. That's -16h, 2 minus 15, it's a -13 equals -21. So then we're going to add, right? We're going to use, so here what we did was combine like terms. Here we distributed. Okay, then here we're going to do addition property. Plus 13. And for time's sake, I'm not going to check it. I'm just going to show you the answer and you can go check it. And this is going to be -8. We're going to do division property of equality. Division property of equality. Okay. So h equals negative divided by negative is going to be 0.5 or 1/2. All right, and then what everybody gets excited about is fractions. In fractions, you still distribute, okay? But in this video, I'm gonna show you the shortcut. Even though it's gonna be in a different lesson. And the reason why I started doing these videos is because I forgot to tell my students some information, and I said, well, let me do a video and send it through email. And then my students said that they really liked that I did that. And so I'm trying to do that now. And hopefully I'm able to capture all of the things that are needed for you to be successful. If not, let me know. Okay, and as I take this small break, please subscribe, share it, like the video. I'm trying to get my status up in the YouTube world. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of these fractions. How do we get rid of these fractions? Well, we're going to multiply, okay, by the common denominator. The common denominator. The common denominator between 2 and 4 is 4. So this 4, we're going to multiply or distribute to what is not in parentheses. What is not in parentheses. All right, so if you look at it, okay, here's 4 of them. Half of 4 is 2, right? Half of 4 is 2. Half of 4 is 2. Okay. Then I'm going to do 4 times 3/4. 4 times 3/4, or 3/4 of 4, right? 3/4 of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3/4 of 4. That's 3/4 of 4 is 3. So keep this the same. Or I'm looking at it 4 times 1, 3 over 4. Reduce. That's how you get 3. And then negative half of 4 is negative 2. Then we're distributing. We get 6b plus 16 plus 3. We do not distribute the 2 to the 3 because there's a plus 3. This is not multiplication. We also did not distribute this 2 to the negative 2 because it's not a part of this expression. So now we combine like terms. We do we do subtraction property of equality. Negative 21. The division property of equality. B equals, we reduce both by 3. End up with negative 7 over 2. Negative 7 over 2. Or negative 3 and 1/2. Okay, and that is all of the chapter on solving linear equations for the first section. All right, so once again, please subscribe to the channel, please share this video, and please like the video, and put any comments that you desire. Okay, and I'm okay with that. Thank you so much for tuning in to Driving Math with Mr. Glenn. Bye.